Hello, and welcome. Tonight, we step gently into one of the most enchanting fairy tales ever told. There's nothing you need to do right now. Just settle in, breathe a little slower, and let the day drift away. If this space brings you comfort, you're always welcome to stay by liking the video or subscribing, but only if it truly feels right to you. I love knowing where these stories travel. So if you wish, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time the night has reached for you. Now lower the lights. Let a soft sound fill the room and allow yourself to be carried slowly, calmly into tonight's story. The Maid of Brakel. A girl from Brakel once went to St. Anne's Chapel at the foot of the Hindenburg, and as she wanted to have a husband and thought there was no one else in the chapel, she sang, "O holy Saint Anne, help me soon to a man. Thou knowest him right well. By Sutmer Gate does he dwell. His hair it is golden. Thou knowest him right well." The clerk, however, was standing behind the altar and heard that, so he cried in a very gruff voice, "Thou shalt not have him. Thou shalt not have him." The maiden thought that the child Mary, who stood by her mother Anne, had called out that to her, and was angry, and cried, "Fiddle-de-dee, conceited thing, hold your tongue, and let your mother speak." Roland. There was once a woman who was a witch, and she had 2 daughters, one ugly and wicked, whom she loved the best, because she was her very own daughter, and one pretty and good, whom she hated, because she was her stepdaughter. One day, the stepdaughter put on a pretty apron, which the other daughter liked so much that she became envious, and said to her mother that she must and should have the apron. "Be content, my child," said the old woman. "Thou shalt have it. Thy stepsister has long deserved death, and tonight, while she is asleep, I shall come and cut off her head. Take care to lie at the farthest side of the bed and push her to the outside." And it would have been all over with the poor girl if she had not been standing in a corner near and heard it all. She did not dare to go outside the door the whole day long, and when bedtime came, the other one got into bed first so as to lie on the farthest side. But when she had gone to sleep, the stepdaughter pushed her towards the outside and took the inside place next to the wall. In the night, the old woman came sneaking. In her right hand, she held an axe, and with her left, she felt for the one who was lying outside, and then she heaved up the axe with both hands and hewed the head off her only daughter. When she had gone away, the other girl got up and went to her sweetheart's, who was called Roland, and knocked at his door. When he came to her, she said, "Listen, dear, Roland, we must flee away in all haste. My stepmother meant to put me to death, but she has killed her only child instead. When the day breaks and she sees what she has done, we are lost. But I advise you, said Roland, to bring away her magic wand with you. Otherwise, we cannot escape her when she comes after to overtake us. So the maiden fetched the magic wand, and she took up the head of her stepsister and let drop 3 drops of blood on the ground, 1 by the bed, 1 in the kitchen, and 1 on the steps. Then she hastened back to her sweetheart. When the old witch got up in the morning, she called out to her daughter to give her the apron, but no daughter came. Then she cried out, "Where art thou?" "Here at the steps, sweeping," answered one of the drops of wood. The old woman went out, but she saw nobody at the steps, and cried again, "Where art thou?" "Here in the kitchen, warming myself," cried the second drop of blood. So she went into the kitchen and found no one. Then she cried again, "Where art thou?" "Oh, here in bed, fast asleep," cried the third drop of blood. Then the mother went into the room and up to the bed, and there lay her only child, whose head she had cut off herself. The witch fell into a great fury, rushed to the window, for from it she could see far and wide. And she caught sight of her stepdaughter hastening away with her dear Roland. "It will be no good to you," cried she. "If you get ever so far away, you cannot escape me." Then she put on her boots, which took her an hour's walk at every stride, and it was not long before she had overtaken them. But the maiden, when she saw the old woman striding up, changed by means of the magic wand her dear Roland into a lake and herself into a duck swimming upon it. The witch stood on the bank and threw in crumbs of bread and took great pains to decoy the duck towards her. But the duck would not be decoyed, and the old woman was obliged to go back in the evening, disappointed. Then the maiden and her dear Roland took again their natural shapes and traveled on the whole night through until daybreak. Then the maiden changed herself into a beautiful flower, standing in the middle of a hedge of thorns, and her dear Roland into a fiddle player. It was not long before the witch came striding up, and she said to the musician, "Dear musician, will you be so kind as to reach that pretty flower for me?" "Oh yes," said he, "I will strike up a tune to it." Then, as she crept quickly up to the hedge to break off the flower, for she knew well who it was he began to play, and whether she liked it or not, she was obliged to dance, for there was magic in the tune. The faster he played, the higher she had to jump, and the thorns tore her clothes and scratched and wounded her. And he did not cease playing until she was spent and lay dead. So now they were saved. And Roland said, "I will go to my father and prepare for the wedding." "And I will stay here," said the maiden, "and wait for you. And so that no one should know me, I will change myself into a red milestone." So away went Roland, and the maiden, in the likeness of a stone, waited in the field for her beloved. But when Roland went home, he fell into the snares of another maiden, who wrought so that he forgot his first love. And the poor girl waited a long time, but at last, seeing that he did not come, she was filled with despair, and changed herself into a flower, thinking, "Perhaps someone in passing will put his foot upon me and crush me." But it happened that a shepherd tending his flock saw the flower, and as it was so beautiful, he gathered it, took it home with him, and put it in his chest. From that time, everything went wonderfully well in the shepherd's house. When he got up in the morning, all the work was already done. The room was swept, the tables and benches, rubbed fire, kindled on the hearth, and water, ready drawn. And when he came home in the middle of the day, the table was laid, and a good meal spread upon it. He could not understand how it was done, for he never saw anybody in his house, and it was too little for anybody to hide in. The good serving pleased him well, but in the end he became uneasy, and went to a wise woman to take counsel of her. The wise woman said, "There is magic in it. Get up early some morning, and if you hear something moving in the room, be it what it may, throw a white cloth over it, and the charm will be broken." The shepherd did as she told him, and the next morning at daybreak he saw the chest open and the flower come out. Then he jumped up quickly and threw a white cloth over it. So the spell was broken, and a lovely maiden stood before him, and she told him that she had been the flower, and had until now cared for his household matters. She told him all that had happened to her, and she pleased him so much that he asked her to marry him. But she answered, "No," because she still remained true to her dear Roland, though he had forsaken her. But she promised not to leave the shepherd, but to go on taking care of his house. Now the time came when Roland's wedding was to be held, and there was an old custom in that country that all the girls should be present and should sing in honor of the bride and bridegroom. The faithful maiden, when she knew this, was so sorrowful that she felt as if her heart would break, and she would not go until the others came and fetched her. And when her turn came to sing, she slipped behind, so that she stood alone, and so began to sing. And as soon as her song reached Roland's ear, he sprang up and cried, "I know that voice, that is the right bride, and no other will I have." And everything that he had forgotten, and that had been swept out of his mind, came suddenly home to him in his heart. and the faithful maiden was married to her dear Roland. Her sorrow came to an end, and her joy began. Hans married. There was once upon a time a young peasant named Hans, whose uncle wanted to find him a rich wife. He therefore seated Hans behind the stove and had it made very hot. Then he fetched a pot of milk and plenty of white bread, gave him a bright, newly coined farthing in his hand, and said, "Hans, hold that farthing fast, crumble the white bread into the milk, and stay where you are, and do not stir from that spot till I come back." "Yes," said Hans, "I will do that." Then the wooer put on a pair of old patched trousers, went to a rich peasant's daughter in the next village, and said, "Won't you marry my nephew Hans? You will get an honest and sensible man who will suit you." The covetous father asked, "How is it with regard to his means? Has he bread to break?" "Dear friend," replied the wooer, "my young nephew has a snug berth, a nice bit of money in hand, and plenty of bread to break. Besides, he has quite as many patches as I have." And as he spoke, he slapped the patches on his trousers. But in that district, small pieces of land were called patches also. "If you will give yourself the trouble to go home with me, you shall see at once that all is as I have said." Then the miser did not want to lose this good opportunity, and said, "If that is the case, I have nothing further to say against the marriage." So the wedding was celebrated on the appointed day, and when the young wife went out of doors to see the bridegroom's property, Hans took off his Sunday coat and put on his patched smock frock, and said, "I might spoil my good coat." Then together they went out, and wherever a boundary line came in sight, or fields and meadows were divided from each other, Hans pointed with his finger, and then slapped either a large or a small patch on his smock frock, and said, "That patch is mine, and that too, my dearest, just look at it," meaning thereby that his wife should not stare at the broad land, but look at his garment, which was his own. "Were you indeed at the wedding?" "Yes, indeed I was there, and in full dress. My headdress was of snow. Then the sun came out, and it was melted. My coat was of cobwebs, and I had to pass by some thorns which tore it off me. My shoes were of glass, and I pushed against a stone, and they said, 'Clink,' and broke in two." Old Hildebrand. Once upon a time lived a peasant, and his wife and the parson of the village had a fancy for the wife, and had wished for a long while to spend a whole day happily with her. The peasant woman, too, was quite willing. One day, therefore, he said to the woman, "Listen, my dear friend, I have now thought of a way by which we can, for once, spend a whole day happily together. I'll tell you what. On Wednesday, you must take to your bed and tell your husband you are ill. And if you only complain and act being ill properly, and go on doing so until Sunday, when I have to preach, I will then say in my sermon that whosoever has at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick brother, or whosoever else it may be, and makes a pilgrimage to the Göckerli hill in Italy, where you can get a peck of laurel leaves for a kreutzer, the sick child, the sick husband, the sick wife, the sick father, or sick mother, the sick sister, or whosoever else it may be, will be restored to health immediately. I will manage it, said the woman promptly. Now therefore, on the Wednesday, the peasant woman took to her bed and complained and lamented as agreed on, and her husband did everything for her that he could think of. But nothing did her any good. And when Sunday came, the woman said, I feel as ill as if I were going to die at once. But there is one thing I should like to do before my end. I should like to hear the parson's sermon that he is going to preach today. On that, the peasant said, Ah, my child, do not do it. Thou mightest make thyself worse if thou wert to get up. Look, I will go to the sermon, and will attend to it very carefully, and will tell thee everything the parson says. Well, said the woman, go then, and pay great attention, and repeat to me all that thou hearest. So the peasant went to the sermon, and the parson began to preach, and said, If anyone had at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or anyone else, and would make a pilgrimage to the Göckerli hill in Italy, where a peck of laurel leaves costs a kreutzer, the sick child, sick husband, sick wife, sick father, sick mother, sick sister, brother, or whosoever else it might be, would be restored to health instantly, and whosoever wished to undertake the journey was to go to him after the service was over, and he would give him the sack for the laurel leaves and the kreutzer. Then no one was more rejoiced than the peasant, and after the service was over, he went at once to the parson, who gave him the bag for the laurel leaves and the kreutzer. After that, he went home, and even at the house door he cried, Hurrah, dear wife! It is now almost the same thing as if thou wert well. The parson has preached today that whosoever had at home a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or whoever it might be, and would make a pilgrimage to the Göckerli hill in Italy, where a peck of laurel leaves costs a kreutzer, the sick child, sick husband, sick wife, sick father, sick mother, sick sister, brother, or whosoever else it was, would be cured immediately. And now I have already got the bag and the kreuzer from the parson, and will at once begin my journey, so that thou mayest get well the faster. And thereupon he went away. He was, however, hardly gone before the woman got up, and the parson was there directly. But now we will leave these two for a while, and follow the peasant, who walked on quickly without stopping, in order to get the sooner to the Göckerli hill, and on his way he met his gossip. His gossip was an egg merchant, and was just coming from the market where he had sold his eggs. "May you be blessed," said the gossip. "Where are you off to so fast?" "To all eternity, my friend," said the peasant. "My wife is ill, and I have been today to hear the parson's sermon, and he preached that if anyone had in his house a sick child, a sick husband, a sick wife, a sick father, a sick mother, a sick sister, brother, or anyone else, and made a pilgrimage to the Göckerli hill in Italy, where a peck of laurel leaves costs a kreuzer, the sick child, the sick husband, the sick wife, the sick father, the sick mother, the sick sister, brother, or whosoever else it was, would be cured immediately. And so I have got the bag for the laurel leaves and the kreuzer from the parson, and now I am beginning my pilgrimage." "But listen, gossip," said the egg merchant to the peasant. "Are you then stupid enough to believe such a thing as that? Don't you know what it means? The parson wants to spend a whole day alone with your wife in peace, so he has given you this to do, to get you out of the way." "My word," said the peasant. "How I'd like to know if that's true." "Come then," said the gossip. "I'll tell you what to do. Get into my egg basket, and I will carry you home, and then you will see for yourself." So that is settled, and the gossip put the peasant into his egg basket and carried him home. When they got to the house, hurrah! But all was going merry there. The woman had already had nearly everything killed that was in the farmyard, and had made pancakes, and the parson was there, and had brought his fiddle with him. The gossip knocked at the door, and woman asked who was there. "It is I, gossip," said the egg merchant. "Give me shelter this night. I have not sold my eggs at the market, so now I have to carry them home again, and they are so heavy that I shall never be able to do it, for it is dark already." "Indeed, my friend," said the woman, "thou comest at a very inconvenient time for me, but as thou art here, it can't be helped. Come in and take a seat there on the bench by the stove." Then she placed the gossip and the basket, which he carried on his back, on the bench by the stove. The parso, however, and the woman were as merry as possible. At length the parson said, "Listen, my dear friend, thou canst sing beautifully. Sing something to me." "Oh," said the woman, "I cannot sing now in my young days. Indeed, I could sing well enough, but that's all over now." "Come," said the parson once more, "do sing some little song." On that the woman began, and sang, "I've sent my husband away from me, to the Göckerli hill in Italy." Thereupon the parson sang, "I wish 'twas a year before he came back. I'd never ask him for the laurel leaf sack." Hallelujah. Then the gossip, who was in the background, began to sing. But I ought to tell you, the peasant was called Hildebrand. So the gossip sang, "What art thou doing, my Hildebrand dear, there on the bench, by the stove, so near?" Hallelujah. And then the peasant sang from his basket, "All singing I ever shall hate from this day, and here in this basket no longer I'll stay." Hallelujah. And he got out of the basket and cudgeled the parson out of the house. The Young Giant. Once on a time, a countryman had a son who was as big as a thumb, and did not become any bigger, and during several years did not grow one hair's breadth. Once, when the father was going out to plow, the little one said, "Father, I will go out with you." "Thou wouldst go out with me," said the father. "Stay here. Thou wilt be of no use out there. Besides, thou mightest get lost." Then Thumbling began to cry, and for the sake of peace, his father put him in his pocket and took him with him. When he was outside in the field, he took him out again and set him in a freshly cut furrow. Whilst he was there, a great giant came over the hill. "Do thou see that great bogey?" said the father, for he wanted to frighten the little fellow to make him good. "He is coming to fetch thee." The giant, however, had scarcely taken 2 steps with his long legs before he was in the furrow. He took up Little. Thumbling carefully, with 2 fingers, examined him, and without saying one word, went away with him. His father stood by, but could not utter a sound for terror, and he thought nothing else but that his child was lost, and that, as long as he lived, he should never set eyes on him again. The giant, however, carried him home, suckled him, and Thumbling grew and became tall and strong after the manner of giants. When 2 years had passed, the old giant took him into the forest, wanted to try him, and said, "Pull up a stick for thyself." Then the boy was already so strong that he tore up a young tree out of the earth by the roots. But the giant thought, "We must do better than that," took him back again, and suckled him 2 years longer. When he tried him, his strength had increased so much that he could tear an old tree out of the ground. That was still not enough for the giant. He again suckled him for 2 years, and when he then went with him into the forest, and said, "Now just tear up a proper stick for me." The boy tore up the strongest oak tree from the earth so that it split, and that was a mere trifle to him. "Now that will do," said the giant. "Thou art perfect," and took him back to the field from whence he had brought him. His father was there, following the plough. The young giant went up to him and said, "Does my father see what a fine man his son has grown into?" The farmer was alarmed and said, "No, thou art not my son. I don't want thee leave me. Truly, I am your son. Allow me to do your work. I can plough as well as you, nay better." "No, no, thou art not my son, and thou canst not plough. Go away." However, as he was afraid of this great man, he left go of the plough, stepped back, and stood at one side of the piece of land. Then the youth took the plough and just pressed it with one hand, but his grasp was so strong that the plough went deep into the earth. The farmer could not bear to see that, and called to him, "If thou art determined to plough, thou must not press so hard on it that makes bad work." The youth, however, unharnessed the horses and drew the plough himself, saying, "Just go home, father, and bid my mother make ready a large dish of food, and in the meantime I will go over the field." Then the farmer went home and ordered his wife to prepare the food. But the youth ploughed the field, which was 2 acres large, quite alone, and then he harnessed himself to the harrow, and harrowed the whole of the land, using 2 harrows at once. When he had done it, he went into the forest and pulled up 2 oak trees, laid them across his shoulders, and hung on them, 1 harrow behind and 1 before, and also 1 horse behind and 1 before, and carried all as if it had been a bundle of straw to his parents' house. When he entered the yard, his mother did not recognize him, and asked, "Who is that horrible tall man?" The farmer said, "That is our son." She said, "No, that cannot be our son. We never had such a tall one. Ours was a little thing." She called to him, "Go away. We do not want thee." The youth was silent, but led his horses to the stable, gave them some oats and hay, and all that they wanted. When he had done this, he went into the parlor, sat down on the bench, and said, "Mother, now I should like something to eat. Will it soon be ready?" Then she said, "Yes," and brought in 2 immense dishes full of food, which would have been enough to satisfy herself and her husband for a week. The youth, however, ate the whole of it himself, and asked if she had nothing more to set before him. "No," she replied, "that is all we have." But that was only a taste. I must have more. She did not dare to oppose him, and went and put a huge cauldron full of food on the fire, and when it was ready, carried it in. "At length come a few crumbs," said he, and ate all there was, but it was still not sufficient to appease his hunger. Then said he, "Father, I see well that with you I shall never have food enough. If you will get me an iron staff which is strong, and which I cannot break against my knees, I will go out into the world." The farmer was glad, put his 2 horses in his cart, and fetched from the smith a staff so large and thick that the 2 horses could only just bring it away. The youth laid it across his knees, and snap, he broke it in 2 in the middle like a beanstalk, and threw it away. The father then harnessed 4 horses and brought a bar, which was so long and thick that the 4 horses could only just drag it. The son snapped this also in twain against his knees, threw it away, and said, "Father, this can be of no use to me. You must harness more horses and bring a stronger staff." So the father harnessed 8 horses and brought one which was so long and thick that the 8 horses could only just carry it. When the son took it in his hand, he broke off a bit from the top of it also, and said, "Father, I see that you will not be able to procure me any such staff as I want. I will remain no longer with you." So he went away and gave out that he was a smith's apprentice. He arrived at a village wherein lived a smith who was a greedy fellow, who never did a kindness to anyone, but wanted everything for himself. The youth went into the smithy and asked if he needed a journeyman. "Yes," said the smith, and looked at him and thought, "That is a strong fellow who will strike out well and earn his bread." So he asked, "How much wages dost thou want?" "I don't want any at all," he replied. "Only every fortnight, when the other journeymen are paid, I will give thee 2 blows, and thou must bear them." The miser was heartily satisfied, and thought he would thus save much money. Next morning, the strange journeyman was to begin to work, but when the master brought the glowing bar, and the youth struck his first blow, the iron flew asunder, and the anvil sank so deep into the earth that there was no bringing it out again. Then the miser grew angry and said, "Oh, but I can't make any use of you. You strike far too powerfully. What will you have for the 1 blow?" Then said he, "I will only give you quite a small blow, that's all." And he raised his foot and gave him such a kick that he flew away over 4 loads of hay. Then he sought out the thickest iron bar in the smithy, for himself took it as a stick in his hand, and went onwards. When he had walked for some time, he came to a small farm, and asked the bailiff if he did not require a head servant. "Yes," said the bailiff, "I can make use of one. You look a strong fellow who can do something. How much a year do you want as wages?" He again replied that he wanted no wages at all, but that every year he would give him 3 blows, which he must bear. Then the bailiff was satisfied, for he too was a covetous fellow. Next morning, all the servants were to go into the wood, and the others were already up, but the head servant was still in bed. Then one of them called to him, "Get up, it is time. We are going into the wood, and thou must go with us." "Ah," said he quite roughly and surlily, "you may just go then. I shall be back again before any of you." Then the others went to the bailiff and told him that the head man was still lying in bed and would not go into the wood with them. The bailiff said they were to awaken him again and tell him to harness the horses. The head man, however, said as before, "Just go there. I shall be back again before any of you." And then he stayed in bed 2 hours longer. At length he arose from the feathers, but first he got himself 2 bushels of peas from the loft, made himself some broth. With them ate it at his leisure, and when that was done, went and harnessed the horses and drove into the wood. Not far from the wood was a ravine through which he had to pass. So he first drove the horses on, and then stopped them, and went behind the cart, took trees and brushwood, and made a great barricade so that no horse could get through. When he was entering the wood, the others were just driving out of it with their loaded carts to go home. Then said he to them, "Drive on. I will still get home before you do." He did not drive far into the wood, but at once tore 2 of the very largest trees of all out of the earth, threw them on his cart, and turned round. When he came to the barricade, the others were still standing there, not able to get through. "Don't you see," said he, "that if you had stayed with me, you would have got home just as quickly, and would have had another hour's sleep?" He now wanted to drive on, but his horises could not work their way through. So he unharnessed them, laid them on the top of the cart, took the shafts in his own hands, and pulled it all through. And he did this just as easily as if it had been laden with feathers. When he was over, he said to the others, "There you see, I have got over quicker than you," and drove on, and the others had to stay where they were. In the yard, however, he took a tree in his hand, showed it to the bailiff, and said, "Isn't that a fine bundle of wood?" Then said the bailiff to his wife, "The servant is a good one. If he does sleep long, he is still home before the others." So he served the bailiff for a year, and when that was over, and the other servants were getting their wages, he said it was time for him to take his too. The bailiff, however, was afraid of the blows which he was to receive, and earnestly entreated him to excuse him from having them. For rather than that, he himself would be head servant, and the youth should be bailiff. "No," said he, I will not be a bailiff. I am head servant, and will remain so, but I will administer that which we agreed on. The bailiff was willing to give him whatsoever he demanded, but it was of no use. The head servant said no to everything. Then the bailiff did not know what to do, and begged for a fortnight's delay, for he wanted to find some way of escape. The head servant consented to this delay. The bailiff summoned all his clerks together, and they were to think the matter over and give him advice. The clerks pondered for a long time, but at last they said that no one was sure of his life with the head servant, for he could kill a man as easily as a midge, and that the bailiff ought to make him get into the well and clean it, and when he was down below, they would roll up one of the millstones which was lying there, and throw it on his head. And then he would never return to daylight. The advice pleased the bailiff, and the head servant was quite willing to go down the well. When he was standing down below at the bottom, they rolled down the largest millstone and thought they had broken his skull, but he cried, "Chase away those hens from the well. They are scratching in the sand up there, and throwing the grains into my eyes so that I can't see." So the bailiff cried, "Shh," and pretended to frighten the hens away. When the head servant had finished his work, he climbed up and said, "Just look what a beautiful necktie I have on." And behold, it was the millstone which he was wearing round his neck. The head servant now wanted to take his reward, but the bailiff again begged for a fortnight's delay. The clerks met together and advised him to send the head servant to the haunted mill to grind corn by night, for from thence as yet no man had ever returned in the morning alive. The proposal pleased the bailiff. He called the head servant that very evening and ordered him to take 8 bushels of corn to the mill and grind it that night, for it was wanted. So the head servant went to the loft and put 2 bushels in his right pocket and 2 in his left, and took 4 in a wallet, half on his back and half on his breast, and thus laden went to the haunted mill. The miller told him that he could grind there very well by day, but not by night, for the mill was haunted, and that up to the present time whosoever had gone into it at night had been found in the morning, lying dead inside. He said, "I will manage it, just you go away to bed." Then he went into the mill and poured out the corn. About 11 o'clock, he went into the miller's room and sat down on the bench. When he had sat there a while, a door suddenly opened, and a large table came in, and on the table wine and roasted meats placed themselves, and much good food besides. But everything came of itself, for no one was there to carry it. After this, the chairs pushed themselves up, but no people came, until all at once he beheld fingers which handled knives and forks and laid food on the plates. But with this exception, he saw nothing. As he was hungry and saw the food, he too placed himself at the table, ate with those who were eating, and enjoyed it. When he had had enough, and the others also had quite emptied their dishes, he distinctly heard all the candles being suddenly snuffed out. And as it was now pitch dark, he felt something like a box on the ear. Then he said, "If anything of that kind comes again, I shall strike out in return." And when he had received a second box on the ear, he too struck out. And so it continued the whole night. He took nothing without returning it, but repaid everything with interest, and did not lay about him in vain. At daybreak, however, everything ceased. When the miller had got up, he wanted to look after him, and wondered if he were still alive. Then the youth said, "I have eaten my fill, have received some boxes on the ears, but I have given some in return." The miller rejoiced, and said that the mill was now released from the spell, and wanted to give him much money as a reward. But he said, "Money I will not have, I have enough of it." So he took his meal on his back, went home, and told the bailiff that he had done what he had been told to do, and would now have the reward agreed on. When the bailiff heard that he was seriously alarmed and quite beside himself, he walked backwards and forwards in the room, and drops of perspiration ran down from his forehead. Then he opened the window to get some fresh air, but before he was aware, the head servant had given him such a kick that he flew through the window out into the air, and so far away that no one ever saw him again. Then said the head servant to the bailiff's wife, "If he does not come back, you must take the other blow." She cried, "No, no, I cannot bear it," and opened the other window, because drops of perspiration were running down her forehead. Then he gave her such a kick that she too flew out, and as she was lighter, she went much higher than her husband. Her husband cried, "Do come to me." But she replied, "Come thou to me, I cannot come to thee." And they hovered about there in the air, and could not get to each other. And whether they are still hovering about or not, I do not know. But the young giant took up his iron bar and went on his way. Clever Grethel. There was once a cook named Grethel, who wore shoes with red rosettes, and when she walked out with them on, she turned herself this way and that, and thought, "You certainly are a pretty girl." And when she came home, she drank in her gladness of heart a draught of wine. And as wine excites a desire to eat, she tasted the best of whatever she was cooking, until she was satisfied, and said, "The cook must know what the food is like." It came to pass that the master one day said to her, "Grethel, there is a guest coming this evening. Prepare me 2 fowls, very daintily." "I will see to it, master," answered Grethel. She killed 2 fowls, scalded them, plucked them, put them on the spit, and towards evening set them before the fire that they might roast. The fowls began to turn brown and were nearly ready, but the guest had not yet arrived. Then Grethel called out to her master, "If the guest does not come, I must take the fowls away from the fire, but it will be a sin and a shame if they are not eaten directly when they are juiciest." The master said, "I will run myself and fetch the guest." When the master had turned his back, Grethel laid the spit with the fowls on one side, and thought, "Standing so long by the fire, there makes one hot and thirsty. Who knows when they will come? Meanwhile, I will run into the cellar and take a drink." She ran down, set a jug, said, "God bless it to thy use, Grethel," and took a good drink, and took yet another hearty draught. Then she went and put the fowls down again, to the fire basted them, and drove the spit merrily round. But as the roast meat smelt so good, Grethel thought, "Something might be wrong. It ought to be tasted." She touched it with her finger and said, "Ah, how good fowls are." It certainly is a sin and a shame that they are not eaten directly. She ran to the window to see if the master was not coming with his guest. But she saw no one, and went back to the fowls, and thought, "One of the wings is burning. I had better take it off and eat it." So she cut it off, ate it, and enjoyed it. And when she had done, she thought, "The other must go down too, or else master will observe that something is missing." When the 2 wings were eaten, she went and looked for her master, and did not see him. It suddenly occurred to her, "Who knows? They are perhaps not coming at all, and have turned in somewhere." Then she said, "Hello, Grethel, enjoy yourself. 1 fowl has been cut into, take another drink, and eat it up entirely. When it is eaten, you will have some peace. Why should God's good gifts be spoiled?" So she ran into the cellar, again took an enormous drink, and ate up the 1 chicken in great glee. When one of the chickens was swallowed down and still, her master did not come. Grethel looked at the other and said, "Where one is, the other should be. Likewise, the 2 go together. What's right for the one is right for the other. I think if I were to take another draught, it would do me no harm." So she took another hearty drink, and let the 2nd chicken rejoin the first. While she was just in the best of the eating, her master came and cried, "Hurry up! Haste thee, Grethel! The guest is coming directly after me." "Yes, sir, I will soon serve up," answered Grethel. Meantime, the master looked to see that the table was properly laid, and took the great knife wherewith he was going to carve the chickens, and sharpened it on the steps. Presently, the guest came and knocked politely and courteously at the house door. Grethel ran and looked to see who was there, and when she saw the guest, she put her finger to her lips and said, "Hush, hush, get away as quickly as you can. If my master catches you, it will be the worse for you. He certainly did ask you to supper, but his intention is to cut off your 2 ears. Just listen how he is sharpening the knife for it." The guest heard the sharpening and hurried down the steps again as fast as he could. Grethel was not idle. She ran screaming to her master and cried, "You have invited a fine guest." Why, Grethel, what do you mean by that?" "Yes," said she, "he has taken the chickens, which I was just going to serve up, off the dish, and has run away with them." "That's a nice trick," said her master, and lamented the fine chickens. "If he had but left me one, so that something remained for me to eat." He called to him to stop, but the guest pretended not to hear. Then he ran after him, with the knife still in his hand, crying, "Just one, just one," meaning that the guest should leave him just one chicken and not take both. The guest, however, thought no otherwise than that he was to give up one of his ears, and ran as if fire were burning under him, in order to take them both home with him. The Tale of Cockaigne. In the time of Cockaigne, I went there, and saw Rome and the Lateran hanging by a small silken thread, and a man without feet, who outran a swift horse and a keen, sharp sword that cut through a bridge. There I saw a young ass with a silver nose, which pursued 2 fleet hares, and a lime tree that was very large, on which hot cakes were growing. There I saw a lean old goat, which carried about 100 cartloads of fat on his body, and 60 loads of salt. Have I not told enough lies? There I saw a plough ploughing without horse or cow, and a child of 1 year threw 4 millstones from Ratisbon to Treves, and from Treves to Strasbourg, and a hawk swam over the Rhine, which he had a perfect right to do. There I heard some fishes begin to make such a disturbance with each other that it resounded as far as heaven, and sweet honey flowed like water from a deep valley at the top of a high mountain, and these were strange things. There were 2 crows which were mowing a meadow, and I saw 2 gnats building a bridge, and 2 doves tore a wolf to pieces. 2 children brought forth 2 kids, and 2 frogs threshed corn together. There I saw 2 mice consecrating a bishop, and 2 cats scratching out a bear's tongue. Then a snail came running up and killed 2 furious lions. There stood a barber and shaved a woman's beard off, and 2 sucking children bade their mother hold her tongue. There I saw 2 greyhounds which brought a mill out of the water, and a sorry old horse was beside it and said it was right. And 4 horses were standing in the yard threshing corn with all their might, and 2 goats were heating the stove, and a red cow shot the bread into the oven. Then a cock crowed. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The story is all told. Cock-a-doodle-doo. The Wedding of Mrs. Fox. First story. There was once, on a time, an old fa with 9 tails, who believed that his wife was not faithful to him, and wished to try her. He stretched himself out under the bench, did not move a limb, and behaved as if he were stone, dead. Mrs. Fox went up to her room, shut herself in, and her maid, Miss Cat, sat by the fire and did the cooking. When it became known that the old fox was dead, wooers presented themselves. The maid heard someone standing at the house door knocking. She went and opened it, and it was a young fox who said, "What may you be about Miss Cat? Do you sleep, or do you wake?" She answered, "I am not sleeping. I am waking. Wouldst thou know what I am making? I am boiling warm beer with butter. So nice will the gentleman enter and drink some likewise." "No, thank you, miss," said the fox. "What is Mrs. Fox doing?" The maid replied, "She sits all alone and makes her moan, weeping her little eyes quite red, because old Mr. Fox is dead. Do just tell her, miss, that a young fox is here who would like to woo her." "Certainly, young sir." The cat goes up the stairs. Trip, trap. The door, she knocks at tap, tap, tap. "Mistress Fox, are you inside?" "Oh yes, my little cat," she cried. A wooer, he stands at the door out there. "Tell me what he is like, my dear. But has he 9 as beautiful tails as the late Mr. Fox?" "Oh no," answered the cat. "He has only 1. "Then I will not have him." Miss Cat went downstairs and sent the wooer away. Soon afterwards, there was another knock, and another fox was at the door who wished to woo Mrs. Fox. He had 2 tails, but he did not fare better than the first. After this, still more came, each with 1 tail more than the other, but they were all turned away, until at last one came who had 9 tails, like old Mr. Fox. When the widow heard that, she said joyfully to the cat, "Now open the gates and doors all wide and carry old Mr. Fox outside." But just as the wedding was going to be solemnized, old Mr. Fox stirred under the bench and cudgeled all the rabble, and drove them and Mrs. Fox out of the house. Second story. When old Mr. Fox was dead, the wolf came as a wooer and knocked at the door, and the cat, who was servant to Mrs. Fox, opened it for him. The wolf greeted her and said, Good day, Mrs. Cat of Carrowit. How comes it that alone you sit? What are you making good? The cat replied, In milk. I'm breaking bread so sweet. Will the gentleman please come in and eat? No, thank you, Mrs. Cat, answered the wolf. Is Mrs. Fox not at home? The cat said, She sits upstairs in her room, bewailing her sorrowful doom, bewailing her trouble so sore, for old Mr. Fox is no more. The wolf answered, If she's in want of a husband now, then will it please her to step below. The cat runs quickly up the stair, and lets her tail fly here and there, until she comes to the parlor door. With her 5 gold rings at the door, she knocks. Are you within, good Mistress Fox? If you're in want of a husband now, then will it please you to step below? Mrs. Fox asked, Has the gentleman red stockings on, and has he a pointed mouth? No, answered the cat. Then he won't do for me. When the wolf was gone, came a dog, a stag, a hare, a bear, a lion, and all the beasts of the forest, one after the other. But one of the good points which old Mr. Fox had possessed was always lacking, and the cat had continually to send the wooers away. At length came a young fox. Then Mrs. Fox said, Has the gentleman red stockings on, and has he a little pointed mouth? Yes, said the cat, he has. Then let him come upstairs, said Mrs. Fox, and ordered the servant to prepare the wedding feast. Sweep me the room as clean as you can, up with the window. Fling out my old man, for many a fine, fat mouse he brought. Yet of his wife he never thought, but ate up every one he caught. Then the wedding was solemnized with young Mr. Fox, and there was much rejoicing and dancing. And if they have not left off, they are dancing still. The Three Sluggards. A certain king had 3 sons, who were all equally dear to him, and he did not know which of them to appoint as his successor after his own death. When the time came, when he was about to die, he summoned them to his bedside and said, Dear children, I have been thinking of something which I will declare unto you. Whichsoever of you is the laziest shall have the kingdom. The eldest said, Then, Father, the kingdom is mine. For I am so idle that if I lie down to rest, and a drop falls in my eye, I will not open it that I may sleep. The second said, Father, the kingdom belongs to me. For I am so idle that when I am sitting by the fire warming myself, I would rather let my heel be burnt off than draw back my leg. The third said, Father, the kingdom is mine, for I am so idle that if I were going to be hanged, and had the rope already round my neck, and anyone put a sharp knife into my hand, with which I might cut the rope, I would rather let myself be hanged then raise my hand to the rope. When the father heard that, he said, Thou hast carried it the farthest, and shalt be king. The Cunning Little Tailor. There was once, on a time, a princess who was extremely proud. If a wooer came, she gave him some riddle to guess, and if he could not find it out, he was sent contemptuously away. She let it be made known also that whosoever solved her riddle should marry her, let him be who he might. At length, therefore, 3 tailors fell in with each other, the 2 eldest of whom thought they had done so many dexterous bits of work successfully that they could not fail to succeed in this also. The third was a little useless land looper who did not even know his trade, but thought he must have some luck in this venture, for where else was it to come from? Then the 2 others said to him, Just stay at home. Thou canst not do much with thy little bit of understanding. The little tailor, however, did not let himself be discouraged, and said he had set his head to work about this for once, and he would manage well enough. And he went forth as if the whole world were his. They all 3 announced themselves to the princess, and said she was to propound her riddle to them, and that the right persons were now come who had understandings so fine that they could be threaded in a needle. Then said the princess, I have 2 kinds of hair on my head. Of what color is it? If that be all, said the first, it must be black and white, like the cloth which is called pepper and salt. The princess said, Wrongly guessed. Let the second answer. Then said the second, If it be not black and white, then it is brown and red, like my father's company coat. Wrongly guessed, said the princess. Let the third give the answer, for I see very well he knows it for certain. Then the little tailor stepped boldly forth and said, The princess has a silver and a golden hair on her head, and those are the 2 different colors. When the princess heard that, she turned pale and nearly fell down with terror, for the little tailor had guessed her riddle, and she had firmly believed that no man on earth could discover it. When her courage returned, she said, Thou hast not won me yet by that. There is still something else that thou must do. Below in the stable is a bear with which thou shalt pass the night. And when I get up in the morning, if thou art still alive, thou shalt marry me. She expected, however, she should thus get rid of the tailor, for the bear had never yet left anyone alive who had fallen into his clutches. The little tailor did not let himself be frightened away, but was quite delighted, and said, Boldly ventured is half won. When therefore the evening came, our little tailor was taken down to the bear. The bear was about to set at the little fellow at once, and give him a hearty welcome with his paws. Softly, softly, said the little tailor. I will soon make thee quiet. Then, quite composedly, and as if he had not an anxiety in the world, he took some nuts out of his pocket, cracked them, and ate the kernels. When the bear saw that he was seized with a desire to have some nuts too, the tailor felt in his pockets and reached him a handful. They were, however, not nuts, but pebbles. The bear put them in his mouth, but could get nothing out of them, let him bite as he would. Thought he, what a stupid blockhead I am. I cannot even crack a nut. And then he said to the tailor, Here, crack me the nuts. There, see what a stupid fellow thou art, said the little tailor, to have such a great mouth and not be able to crack a small nut. Then he took the pebble and nimbly put a nut in his mouth in the place of it, and crack, it was in two. I must try the thing again, said the bear. When I watch you, I then think I ought to be able to do it too. So the tailor once more gave him a pebble, and the bear tried and tried to bite into it with all the strength of his body. But no one will imagine that he accomplished it. When that was over, the tailor took out a violin from beneath his coat and played a piece of it to himself. When the bear heard the music, he could not help beginning to dance. And when he had danced a while, the thing pleased him so well that he said to the little tailor, Hark you, is the fiddle heavy, light enough for a child? Look with the left hand. I lay my fingers on it, and with the right I stroke it with the bow, and then it goes merrily, hop, sa viva la lera. So, said the bear, fiddling is a thing I should like to understand too, that I might dance whenever I had a fancy. What dost thou think of that? Wilt thou give me lessons? With all my heart, said the tailor, if thou hast a talent for it. But just let me see thy claws. They are terribly long. I must cut thy nails a little. Then a vice was brought, and the bear put his claws in it, and the little tailor screwed it tight, and said, Now wait until I come with the scissors. And he let the bear growl as he liked, and lay down in the corner on a bundle of straw, and fell asleep. When the princess heard the bear growling so fiercely during the night, she believed nothing else but that he was growling for joy, and had made an end of the tailor. In the morning, she arose careless and happy, but when she peeped into the stable, the tailor stood gaily before her, and was as healthy as a fish in water. Now she could not say another word against the wedding, because she had given a promise before everyone, and the king ordered a carriage to be brought in, which she was to drive to church with the tailor, and there she was to be married. When they had got into the carriage, the two other tailors, who had false hearts and envied him his good fortune, went into the stable and unscrewed the bear again. The bear, in great fury, ran after the carriage. The princess heard him snorting and growling. She was terrified, and she cried, "Ah, the bear is behind us, and wants to get thee." The tailor was quick, and stood on his head, stuck his legs out of the window, and cried, "Dost thou see the vice? If thou dost not be off, thou shalt be put into it again." When the bear saw that, he turned round and ran away. The tailor drove quietly to church, and the princess was married to him at once, and he lived with her as happy as a woodlark. Whosoever does not believe this must pay a thaler. The Two Travelers. Hill and vale do not come together, but the children of men do good and bad. In this way, a shoemaker and a tailor once met with each other in their travels. The tailor was a handsome little fellow who was always merry and full of enjoyment. He saw the shoemaker coming towards him from the other side, and as he observed by his bag what kind of a trade he plied, he sang a little mocking song to him. "Sew me the seam, draw me the thread, spread it over with pitch, knock the nail on the head." The shoemaker, however, could not endure a joke. He pulled a face as if he had drunk vinegar, and made a gesture as if he were about to seize the tailor by the throat. But the little fellow began to laugh, reached him his bottle, and said, "No harm was meant. Take a drink, and swallow your anger down." The shoemaker took a very hearty drink, and the storm on his face began to clear away. He gave the bottle back to the tailor and said, "I spoke civilly to you. One speaks well after much drinking, but not after much thirst. Shall we travel together?" "All right," answered the tailor, "if only it suits you to go into a big town where there is no lack of work." "That is just where I want to go," answered the shoemaker. "In a small nest there is nothing to earn, and in the country people like to go barefoot." They traveled therefore onwards together, and always set one foot before the other, like a weasel in the snow. Both of them had time enough, but little to bite and to break. When they reached a town, they went about and paid their respects to the tradesmen, and because the tailor looked so lively and merry, and had such pretty red cheeks, everyone gave him work willingly, and when luck was good, the master's daughters gave him a kiss beneath the porch as well. When he again fell in with the shoemaker, the tailor had always the most in his bundle. The ill-tempered shoemaker made a wry face and thought, "The greater the rascal, the more the luck." But the tailor began to laugh and to sing, and shared all he got with his comrade. If a couple of pence jingled in his pockets, he ordered good cheer, and thumped the table in his joy, till the glasses danced, and it was lightly, come lightly go with him. When they had traveled for some time, They came to a great forest through which passed the road to the capital. 2 footpaths, however, led through it, one of which was a 7 days' journey, and the other only 2, but neither of the travelers knew which way was the short one. They seated themselves beneath an oak tree and took counsel together how they should forecast and for how many days they should provide themselves with bread. The shoemaker said, "One must look before one leaps. I will take with me bread for a week." "What?" said the tailor. "Drag bread for 7 days on one's back, like a beast of burden, and not be able to look about. I shall trust in God, and not trouble myself about anything. The money I have in my pocket is as good in summer as in winter, but in hot weather, bread gets dry and moldy into the bargain. Even my coat does not go as far as it might. Besides, why should we not find the right way bread for 2 days, and that's enough?" Each therefore bought his own bread, and then they tried their luck in the forest. It was as quiet there as in a church. No wind stirred, no brook murmured, no bird sang, and through the thickly leaved branches, no sunbeam forced its way. The shoemaker spoke never a word. The heavy bread weighed down his back until the perspiration streamed down his cross and gloomy face. The tailor, however, was quite merry. He jumped about, whistled on a leaf, or sang a song, and thought to himself, "God in heaven must be pleased to see me so happy." This lasted 2 days, but on the 3rd, the forest would not come to an end, and the tailor had eaten up all his bread. So after all, his heart sank down a yard deeper. In the meantime, he did not lose courage, but relied on God and on his luck. On the 3rd day, he lay down in the evening, hungry under a tree, and rose again, next morning, hungry still. So also passed the 4th day, and when the shoemaker seated himself on a fallen tree and devoured his dinner, the tailor was only a looker-on. If he begged for a little piece of bread, the other laughed mockingly and said, "Thou hast always been so merry. Now thou canst try for once what it is to be sad." The birds, which sing too early in the morning, are struck by the hawk in the evening. In short, he was pitiless. But on the 5th morning, the poor tailor could no longer stand up, and was hardly able to utter one word for weakness. His cheeks were white, and his eyes red. Then the shoemaker said to him, "I will give thee a bit of bread today, but in return for it, I will put out thy right eye." The unhappy tailor, who still wished to save his life, could not do it in any other way. He wept once more with both eyes, and then held them out, and the shoemaker, who had a heart of stone, put out his right eye with a sharp knife. The tailor called to remembrance what his mother had formerly said to him when he had been eating secretly in the pantry. Eat what one can, and suffer what one must. When he had consumed his dearly bought bread, he got on his legs again, forgot his misery, and comforted himself with the thought that he could always see enough with one eye. But on the 6th day, hunger made itself felt again, and gnawed him almost to the heart. In the evening, he fell down by a tree, and on the 7th morning he could not raise himself up, for faintness and death was close at hand. Then said the shoemaker, I will show mercy, and give thee bread once more, but thou shalt not have it for nothing. I shall put out thy other eye for it. And now the tailor felt how thoughtless his life had been, prayed to God for forgiveness, and said, Do what thou wilt. I will bear what I must. But remember that our Lord God does not always look on passively, and that an hour will come when the evil deed which thou hast done to me, and which I have not deserved of thee, will be requited. When times were good with me, I shared what I had with thee. My trade is of that kind that each stitch must always be exactly like the other. If I no longer have my eyes, and can sew no more, I must go a-begging. At any rate, do not leave me here alone when I am blind, or I shall die of hunger. The shoemaker, however, who had driven God out of his heart, took the knife and put out his left eye. Then he gave him a bit of bread to eat, held out a stick to him, and drew him on behind him. When the sun went down, they got out of the forest, and before them in the open country stood the gallows. Thither the shoemaker guided the blind tailor, and then left him alone, and went his way. Weariness, pain, and hunger made the wretched man fall asleep, and he slept the whole night. When day dawned, he awoke, but knew not where he lay. 2 poor sinners were hanging on the gallows, and a crow sat on the head of each of them. Then one of the men who had been hanged began to speak, and said, Brother, art thou awake? Yes, I am awake, answered the second. Then I will tell thee something, said the first. The dew which this night has fallen down over us from the gallows gives everyone who washes himself with it his eyes again. If blind people did but know this, how many would regain their sight, who do not believe that to be possible? When the tailor heard that he took his pocket-handkerchief, pressed it on the grass, and when it was moist with dew, washed the sockets of his eyes with it, immediately was fulfilled what the man on the gallows had said, and a couple of healthy new eyes filled the sockets. It was not long before the tailor saw the sun rise behind the mountains, In the plain before him lay the great royal city, with its magnificent gates and 100 towers, and the golden balls and crosses which were on the spires began to shine. He could distinguish every leaf on the trees, saw the birds which flew past, and the midges which danced in the air. He took a needle out of his pocket, and as he could thread it as well as ever he had done, his heart danced with delight. He threw himself on his knees, thanked God for the mercy he had shown him, and said his morning prayer. He did not forget also to pray for the poor sinners who were hanging there, swinging against each other in the wind like the pendulums of clocks. Then he took his bundle on his back and soon forgot the pain of heart he had endured, and went on his way singing and whistling. The first thing he met was a brown foal running about the fields at large. He caught it by the mane and wanted to spring on it and ride into the town. The foal, however, begged to be set free. "I am still too young," it said. "Even a light tailor, such as thou art, would break my back in two. Let me go till I have grown strong. A time may perhaps come when I may reward thee for it." "Run off," said the tailor. "I see thou art still a giddy thing." He gave it a touch with a switch over its back, whereupon it kicked up its hind legs, for joy leapt over hedges and ditches, and galloped away into the open country. But the little tailor had eaten nothing since the day before. "The sun, to be sure, fills my eyes," said he, "but the bread does not fill my mouth. The first thing that comes across me and is even half edible will have to suffer for it." In the meantime, a stork stepped solemnly over the meadow towards him. "Halt! Halt!" cried the tailor, and seized him by the leg. "I don't know if thou art good to eat or not, but my hunger leaves me no great choice. I must cut thy head off and roast thee." "Don't do that," replied the stork. "I am a sacred bird, which brings mankind great profit, and no one does me an injury. Leave me my life, and I may do thee good in some other way." "Well, be off, cousin Longlegs," said the tailor. The stork rose up, let its long legs hang down, and flew gently away. "What's to be the end of this?" said the tailor to himself. At last, "My hunger grows greater and greater, and my stomach more and more empty. Whatsoever comes in my way now is lost." At this moment, he saw a couple of young ducks which were on a pond come swimming towards him. "You come just at the right moment," said he, and laid hold of one of them, and was about to wring its neck. On this, an old duck, which was hidden among the reeds, began to scream loudly, and swam to him with open beak, and begged him urgently to spare her dear children. "Canst thou not imagine," said she, "how thy mother would mourn if anyone wanted to carry thee off and give thee thy finishing stroke?" "Only be quiet," said the good-tempered tailor. "Thou shalt keep thy children and put the prisoner back into the water." When he turned round, he was standing in front of an old tree, which was partly hollow, and saw some wild bees flying in and out of it. "There I shall at once find the reward of my good deed," said the tailor. "The honey will refresh me." But the queen bee came out, threatened him, and said, "If thou touchest my people and destroyest my nest, our stings shall pierce thy skin like 10,000 red-hot needles. But if thou wilt leave us in peace and go thy way, we will do thee a service for it another time." The little tailor saw that here also nothing was to be done. 3 dishes empty, and nothing on the 4th is a bad dinner. He dragged himself, therefore, with his starved-out stomach into the town, and as it was just striking 12, all was ready cooked for him in the inn, and he was able to sit down at once to dinner. When he was satisfied, he said, "Now I will get to work." He went round the town, sought a master, and soon found a good situation. As, however, he had thoroughly learnt his trade, it was not long before he became famous, and everyone wanted to have his new coat made by the little tailor, whose importance increased daily. "I can go no further in skill," said he, "and yet things improve every day." At last the king appointed him court tailor. But how things do happen in the world! On the very same day, his former comrade, the shoemaker, also became court shoemaker. When the latter caught sight of the tailor and saw that he had once more 2 healthy eyes, his conscience troubled him. "Before he takes revenge on me," thought he to himself, "I must dig a pit for him." He, however, who digs a pit for another falls into it himself. In the evening, when work was over and it had grown dusk, he stole to the king and said, "Lord King, the tailor is an arrogant fellow and has boasted that he will get the gold crown back again, which was lost in ancient times." "That would please me very much," said the king, and he caused the tailor to be brought before him next morning and ordered him to get the crown back again, or to leave the town forever. "Oh, ho," thought the tailor, "a rogue gives more than he has got. If the surly king wants me to do what can be done by no one, I will not wait till morning, but will go out of the town at once today." He packed up his bundle, therefore, but when he was without the gate, he could not help being sorry to give up his good fortune and turn his back on the town in which all had gone so well with him. He came to the pond where he had made the acquaintance of the ducks. At that very moment, the old one, whose young ones he had spared, was sitting there by the shore, pluming herself with her beak. She knew him again instantly, and asked why he was hanging his head. So, "Thou wilt not be surprised when thou hearest what has befallen me," replied the tailor, and told her his fate. "If that be all," said the duck, "we can help thee. The crown fell into the water and lies down below at the bottom. We will soon bring it up again for thee. In the meantime, just spread out thy handkerchief on the bank." She dived down with her 12 young ones, and in 5 minutes she was up again, and sat with the crown resting on her wings, and the 12 young ones were swimming round about, and had put their beaks under it, and were helping to carry it. They swam to the shore, and put the crown on the handkerchief. No one can imagine how magnificent the crown was. When the sun shone on it, it gleamed like 100,000 carbuncles. The tailor tied his handkerchief together by the 4 corners and carried it to the king, who was full of joy, and put a gold chain round the tailor's neck. When the shoemaker saw that one stroke had failed, he contrived a second, and went to the king, and said, "Lord King, the tailor has become insolent again. He boasts that he will copy in wax the whole of the royal palace, with everything that pertains to it, loose or fast, inside and out." The king sent for the tailor, and ordered him to copy in wax the whole of the royal palace, with everything that pertained to it, movable or immovable within and without. And if he did not succeed in doing this, or if so much as one nail on the wall were wanting, he should be imprisoned for his whole life underground. The tailor thought, "It gets worse and worse. No one can endure that," and threw his bundle on his back and went forth. When he came to the hollow tree, he sat down and hung his head. The bees came flying out, and the queen bee asked him if he had a stiff neck, since he held his head so awry. "Alas, no," answered the tailor. "Something quite different weighs me down." And he told her what the king had demanded of him. The bees began to buzz and hum amongst themselves, and the queen bee said, "Just go home again, but come back tomorrow at this time, and bring a large sheet with you, and then all will be well." So he turned back again, but the bees flew to the royal palace, and straight into it, through the open windows, crept round about into every corner, and inspected everything most carefully. Then they hurried back and modeled the palace in wax with such rapidity that anyone looking on would have thought it was growing before his eyes. By the evening, all was ready, and when the tailor came next morning, the whole of the splendid building was there, and not one nail in the wall or tile of the roof was wanting, and it was delicate withal, and white as snow, and smelt sweet as honey. The tailor wrapped it carefully in his cloth, and took it to the king, who could not admire it enough, placed it in his largest hall, and in return for it, presented the tailor with a large stone house. The shoemaker, however, did not give up, but went for the third time to the king and said, "Lord King, it has come to the tailor's ears that no water will spring up in the courtyard of the castle, and he has boasted that it shall rise up in the midst of the courtyard to a man's height and be clear as crystal." Then the king ordered the tailor to be brought before him and said, "If a stream of water does not rise in my courtyard by tomorrow, as thou hast promised, the executioner shall in that very place make thee shorter by the head." The poor tailor did not take long to think about it, but hurried out to the gate. And because this time it was a matter of life and death, to him tears rolled down his face. Whilst he was thus going forth full of sorrow, the foal to which he had formerly given its liberty, and which had now become a beautiful chestnut horse, came leaping towards him. "The time has come," it said to the tailor, "when I can repay thee for thy good deed. I know already what is needful to thee, but thou shalt soon have help. Get on me, my back can carry 2 such as thou." The tailor's courage came back to him. He jumped up in one bound, and the horse went full speed into the town, and right up to the courtyard of the castle. It galloped as quick as lightning thrice round it, and at the third time it fell violently down. At the same instant, however, there was a terrific clap of thunder. A fragment of earth in the middle of the courtyard sprang like a cannonball into the air, and over the castle and directly after it, a jet of water rose as high as a man on horseback, and the water was as pure as crystal, and the sunbeams began to dance on it. When the king saw that, he arose in amazement and went and embraced the tailor in the sight of all men. But good fortune did not last long. The king had daughters in plenty, one still prettier than the other, but he had no son. So the malicious shoemaker betook himself for the 4th time to the king, and said, "Lord King, the tailor has not given up his arrogance. He has now boasted that if he liked, he could cause a son to be brought to the Lord King through the air." The king commanded the tailor to be summoned, and said, "If thou causest a son to be brought to me within 9 days, thou shalt have my eldest daughter to wife." The reward is indeed great, thought the little tailor. One would willingly do something for it, but the cherries grow too high for me. If I climb for them, the bough will break beneath me, and I shall fall. He went home, seated himself cross-legged on his work table, and thought over what was to be done. "It can't be managed," cried he at last. "I will go away. after all, I can't live in peace here." He tied up his bundle and hurried away to the gate. When he got to the meadow, he perceived his old friend, the stork, who was walking backwards and forwards like a philosopher. Sometimes he stood still, took a frog into close consideration, and at length swallowed it down. The stork came to him and greeted him. "I see," he began, "that thou hast thy pack on thy back. Why art thou leaving the town?" The tailor told him what the king had required of him, and how he could not perform it, and lamented his misfortune. "Don't let thy hair grow gray about that," said the stork. "I will help thee out of thy difficulty. For a long time now, I have carried the children in swaddling clothes into the town, so for once in a way, I can fetch a little prince out of the well. Go home and be easy. In 9 days from this time, repair to the royal palace, and there will I come." The little tailor went home, and at the appointed time was at the castle. It was not long before the stork came flying thither and tapped at the window. The tailor opened it, and Cousin Longlegs came carefully in and walked with solemn steps over the smooth marble pavement. He had, moreover, a baby in his beak that was as lovely as an angel, and stretched out its little hands to the queen. The stork laid it in her lap, and she caressed it and kissed it, and was beside herself with delight. Before the stork flew away, he took his traveling bag off his back and handed it over to the queen. In it, there were little paper parcels with colored sweetmeats, and they were divided amongst the little princesses. The eldest, however, had none of them, but got the merry tailor for a husband. "It seems to me," said he, "just as if I had won the highest prize. My mother was, if right. After all, she always said that whoever trusts in God and only has good luck can never fail." The shoemaker had to make the shoes in which the little tailor danced at the wedding festival, after which he was commanded to quit the town forever. The road to the forest led him to the gallows. Worn out with anger rage and the heat of the day, he threw himself down. When he had closed his eyes and was about to sleep, the 2 crows flew down from the heads of the men who were hanging there and pecked his eyes out. In his madness, he ran into the forest and must have died there of hunger, for no one has ever either seen him again or heard of him.